Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leadership and Organizational Laboratory. This is the edited version of session one of our live convening from our Architect of Trust series, which has 6 sessions. Session one, The World We Are Leading in, Understanding the Information Landscape and What It Demands of Leaders, was held on July 20th, 2026. It covered what leading in an age of information disruption demands of leaders and organizations. The live convening saw participants from Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Dominica, the Bahamas, Nigeria, and the USA. Some participants brought their colleagues together in their physical organizational spaces to form a group so they can participate during the convening. For us, this showed a deep interest in this series and the desire of leaders to strengthen their capacity and understand the information landscape. The live convening incorporated group and individual reflective activities. This edited recording is broken down into 5 parts so you can learn at your own pace. Each part is connected. We have incorporated the group and individual activities so you can engage with them. Although group exercises can be completed individually, a group setting yields richer engagement by fostering diverse ideas, shared expertise, and peer review for deeper insights. The Architect of Trust series is about co creating an environment for honest, rigorous, and genuinely useful laboratory exploration where leaders examine their leadership and redefine it while building foresight and examining their organizational health. Welcome to part one, where we look at distinguishing between misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and AI generated content, and how you can begin the process of examining the sector in which you operate and develop your default future map. I am Shona Alexander Benjamin, your facilitator and the developer of the Leadership and Organizational Health Laboratory. I am a systemic impact strategist with a decade of experience using a transdisciplinary approach, working at the intersection of socioeconomic development, interpersonal violence prevention, organizational health, peace, and security. With interest in evidence based decision making, civility and trust, ethical leadership, and promoting accountable democracies, social capital and human rights, trauma, healthcare, and financial health and wellness, international and cross cultural relations, policy and social cohesion, ending violence against women and girls, and Industry 5.0. My academic journey includes current postgraduate studies, which I'm pursuing. Additionally, I hold an MBA and a Bachelor of Social Work with a minor in psychology from Huntington University, Indiana, USA, a diploma in development leadership with an elective in gender justice, citizenship, and community development, a thematic specialization in promoting accountable democracies, and leadership specializations in conflict transformation and peace building and advocacy, increasing citizens' voice and agency from St. Francis Xavier University, Nova Scotia, Canada. I also hold specialized diplomas in community driven social change, digital government to smart government, leadership, social inclusion, and access to rights, and numerous professional development certifications, awards, and recognition for my work. Let's start part one off with a reflective question. In the last 7 days, have you shared a piece of information on WhatsApp, in a meeting, at a social gathering, in a report, or in a decision that you never actually verified? Here is the truth. In the world we are leading in, it is virtually impossible not to be a carrier of unverified information at some point. The question is not whether it has happened. The question is, whether we have the information, self awareness, and the structural tools to recognize it when it does and to lead differently because of that recognition. The next question is, what kind of world are leaders actually making decisions in? It's certainly not the world described in our leadership classes and books from 2015 or 5 years ago. Leaders are now making decisions in a complex and information rich environment. It's the world as it actually is today, not the one from yesterday, but the one you are navigating right now. Think about one word that captures the information environment you navigate daily as a leader: employee, student, business owner, elected official, or professional. Do words or phrases like chaotic, information overload, post truth, overwhelming, uncertain, noisy, complex, opportunity, fragmented come to mind? This is the world in which, as leaders, you are expected to make sound, ethical decisions, build trust, promote accountable democracies, communicate clearly, and lead ethically and with integrity while being accountable. Leaders are not making decisions in ideal conditions. Rather, they are making them in conditions where the spread of information is disrupting every aspect of decision making, organizational life, and personal life. This session will help leaders understand the information environment and become aware of the kind of world they are actually making decisions in. Let us gain a basic understanding of the information environment. There is a word that social scientists and policy analysts are using to describe the current moment: polycrisis, which is multiple, overlapping, and reinforcing disruptions happening simultaneously. Here are five of them. Let me walk you through them briefly because understanding the landscape is critical for navigating it. Let's start with information disorder. This is the organized and deliberate manipulation, pollution, and corruption of information to distort the truth. We are also seeing the increasing use of AI and the digital information ecosystem, which is accelerating the speed of information disorder. Let me pause here to say that information disorder is not only AI enabled. It has existed throughout human history via rumors, false claims, biased reporting, and deliberate propaganda, all of which spread quickly via word of mouth. You may remember when pamphlets were used, when early printing presses were used, and when manual manipulation was used, long before modern artificial intelligence emerged. These are still in operation. However, technological advances, including AI and emerging technologies, have increased the speed of creation, access, consumption, and dissemination. Wars, political movements, businesses, and religious organizations have always used orchestrated manipulation of information and even censorship without relying on automated machines. Let's now look at geopolitical instability, shifting alliances, and shifts in global power, the breakdown of international peace and security, and diplomatic cooperation, contested governance, armed conflicts, and order driven by wars and political crises are reshaping global systems in real time. It directly threatens economic growth, supply chains, development, and people's ability to move freely, speak freely, and move across borders in a healthy way. Leaders from emerging economies in the Caribbean and global south do not exist outside these dynamics. They are shaped by them, often in ways that are not immediately visible or acknowledged and in ways we are not prepared for. Let's look now at AI driven disruption. Artificial intelligence is not coming, it is here. It is reshaping how information is created, viewed, consumed, and shared, how work is done, how decisions are made, what skills are considered valuable and expendable, and what leadership looks like and even means in this era. It is driving the restructuring of many institutions. Most institutions are significantly behind the pace of this change. Let's now look at democratic erosion, the gradual weakening of the institutional checks and participatory norms that sustain democratic governance. This is happening globally, and it is being accelerated by information disorder. Many leaders are using the system against itself. We are seeing leaders use existing legal frameworks, legislative changes, or executive authority to change the rules in their favor. This action is not new, it is now becoming more pronounced. In many economies, elections may still take place. However, the playing field becomes unfair or heavily tilted toward those in power. Now, when we think about that, we also think about those who are not in power and how they can tilt the electoral playing field by eroding public trust and enabling political polarization through various tactics and strategies. The manipulation and weaponization of information and the growing gridlocking of government institutions can make governing impossible. When people cannot agree on shared facts or on participatory processes, democratic deliberation becomes nearly impossible, and trust in leaders, processes, and institutions begin to decline. Let's look at climate and environmental vulnerability. For the Caribbean specifically, this is a matter of survival, not a metaphor. Emerging economies face climate disruptions on a scale without precedent in our institutional histories, and we do so with fewer resources and less adaptive capacity than larger economies. Now, here is what is important about seeing these five together. They do not operate in isolation. They compound each other, and running through all of them, the thread that connects every single one is a crisis of truth, integrity, accountability, transparency, civility, and a growing deficit of trust. This is not the backdrop to leadership, this is the operating environment. And if our leadership frameworks and processes were not designed for this environment, the time is here and we need to talk about that. Now, here's a question for you. Which of these five disruptions is most immediately felt in your sector? Let us get specific. What actually is happening in the information environment and what leaders need to know about it? Let's now look at information disorder, which is the center of our session one in this series, The Architect of Trust, an initiative under the Leadership and Organizational Health Laboratory. Misinformation is the spread of false or inaccurate information without the deliberate intent to deceive. It must be noted that the absence of intent does not reduce the harm misinformation can cause. Misinformation spreads not because people are malicious, but because human beings are social. As human beings, we share things that feel true. People naturally share content that triggers strong emotions or confirms pre existing beliefs. We share things that our trusted networks have shared with us, and in so doing, we become carriers of information that may cause real damage to individuals, public decisions, institutional credibility, and the quality of leadership choices. The leadership question, therefore, is not have I ever intentionally spread misinformation? Almost no one has intentionally spread misinformation. The question we should be asking ourselves is have I shared information that turned out to be wrong? And if so, what led me to trust the information in the first place? And what did I do when I found out the truth? Here is a question for you. Have you ever shared information in a meeting, a social gathering, a WhatsApp group, or a report that turned out to be inaccurate? What made you trust it in the first place? What motivated you to share the information? And what was the intent? Write down one word that made you trust the information enough to share it. Write down what motivated you and what the intent was. Your response do not show a failure of character. All of them are features of how human beings process information, respond to their fears and needs, especially under conditions of busyness, social and economic pressure, complex professional lives, and a culture that demands instant responses and clamors for more and more information. The question we are building toward in this session is how do we build systems, personal and organizational, that create or require a pause between receiving information, processing, and verifying it and acting on it. Let us now look at another type of information disorder, something that is more deliberate: disinformation. This is different from misinformation. At its root is intent. False information that is deliberately created and spread with a specific purpose to deceive, manipulate, or destabilize. This information is not accidental. It is well resourced, it is strategic, it is calculated, and in an age of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, it is becoming indistinguishable from authentic content. Content such as deepfake videos of leaders and everyday citizens, AI authored news articles, use of AI generated or stock photos in news articles without proper citation to frame a narrative that elicits emotional responses over logical ones and fosters false perceptions of the actors or processes mentioned. While the information in the article may be true, the images used can be misleading, thereby deliberately sharing false information through imagery. Let's consider fabricated screenshots of official communications that is shared in public spaces, which drives public opinions about people, processes, and situations. These are not futuristic concerns. They are happening now, shaping how leaders lead, how the public thinks, and how organizations thrive. And they are arriving in the leadership environments of organizations across every sector and industry. What makes this information particularly dangerous for leaders and organizations is this: it can be targeted at an institution, a leader, and a business, a policy, or a community. It is often designed to spread through trusted networks. The goal of effective disinformation is not to be believed by everyone. It is to be believed by enough of the right people to produce a desired outcome. That desired outcome may be to discredit an institution, manipulate a decision or process, destabilize a community or business, or damage a leader's credibility. And here is the trap: by the time this information is corrected, the damage is usually already done. Research shows that corrections of false information spread significantly slower than the original false content. You may have heard this saying: a lie would go around the world like 100 times while the truth is still putting on its shoes. Correcting false information takes time, resources, and sometimes the damage is so deep that erasing the perceptions can be at times impossible. Leaders who act on disinformation, even in good faith, become unwitting participants in the distortion. Here is a question for you: has your organization ever been affected by deliberate disinformation? Think about that. Let's now move to another type of information disorder: malinformation. This is true information used with the intent to harm or weaponized for personal, institutional, or political gain. Think about this for a moment. Because it challenges everything we tend to assume that truth is always safe. We often believe that if something is factually accurate, there is no harm in sharing it. Malinformation shows us in the most vivid manner that this assumption is wrong. Let us consider for a moment that you are having a conversation and you make a series of real statements. However, a phrase or specific statement is isolated and taken out of context, which gives it meaning and clarity and then shared publicly. A real statement, a real audio clip taken out of context and shared for public opinion. A genuine photograph used without the circumstances that would give it meaning. An actual email leaked without its surrounding conversation. An individual's real statements shared alongside a framing that transforms its meaning entirely. This is true information weaponized. And it is the hardest form of information disorder to defend against because fact checking may confirm the basic information as accurate. The manipulation of the information involves the context, the timing of its sharing, the framing around the information, who shares it, the selective emphasis, and the intent. For leaders and citizens in the Caribbean, this is not abstract. There are numerous documented examples, real audio recordings of public officials, edited and stripped of context, have circulated on social media and reshaped public perception before any clarification reached the same audiences. Genuine documents are leaked in ways designed to damage institutions, leaders, businesses, and groups, regardless of whether the documents themselves tell the full story. The leadership and public response to misinformation requires more than fact checking. It requires critical thinking, contextual intelligence, and the ability to ask uncomfortable questions. Not just, is this true, but true in what context? And whose interest does it serve to share it in this way? And who shared it? Here's a question for you. In your sector, your institution, your community, who is most vulnerable to malinformation and why? Let us now look at a rapidly evolving form of information disorder. One of the most rapidly evolving forms of information disorder is AI generated content, synthetic content. AI generated content is synthetic media, such as text, video, audio, and images, designed to replicate human creation and reality using machine learning and deep learning algorithms. Basically, they are designed to appear authentic. Let's look at some statistics. The volume of AI generated news content doubled between 2022 and 2024, and much of it is designed to be indistinguishable from verified reporting. A 2023 study by Reuters Institute found that 60% of senior managers across sectors admitted making at least one significant decision in the past year based on information that later proved to be inaccurate or incomplete. Think about that for a minute. 60% of senior managers in 1 year. And then think about the decisions leaders in your organization, community, homes, or country are making. The World Economic Forum, considered an internationally credible, non alarmist organization, has ranked misinformation and disinformation as the number one short term global risk. Not climate change, not armed conflict, the organized distortion of truth. Think about that. What forms the synthetic content take? We have synthetic videos, which include moving images, digital avatars, and deep fakes that depict events or swap a person's likeness. Synthetic images include artificial graphics, art, and photorealistic pictures created by diffusion models or generative adversarial networks. Generated images representing events that never happened. Synthetic text. These include written materials such as articles, code, published books, essays, and chat replies produced by large language models. Synthetic audio include cloned voices, computer generated music, and text to speech narration. Cloned voices produce audio that was never spoken. Virtual humans include fully interactive digital characters, combining visual appearance, speech synthesis, and conversational logic. Here is what I want you to hold. AI generated content is not only a threat from outside your organization, It is also a tool that your staff, your stakeholders, and your communication systems may already be using, sometimes without adequate governance, training, or foresight, and sometimes without transparency, and in ways that will be difficult to distinguish from authentic human generated communication. AI literacy is no longer optional for leaders, it should be a requirement. You do not need to be a technology expert. You simply need to be intentional about how you use information and technology and strengthening your leadership capacity. Leaders need to understand enough about what AI can produce and what it cannot verify to lead AI informed teams with ethical discernment, transparency, and clarity. And leaders must not run from artificial intelligence. Rather, they must identify ways to use it responsibly and effectively as a tool to boost productivity, inspire creativity, not to replace humans. Additionally, leaders must demonstrate the ethical use of AI and put processes in place to validate the synthesized output of AI models. Here's a question for you. What is one thing you wish your organization's leadership understand about AI generated content? These four types of information disorder taken together produce something that is more than the sum of their parts. They produce what is being called an epistemic crisis in the information environment. They are fracturing society's shared standards of truth through misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and synthetic content production. These are also considered information pollutants that overwhelmed cognitive verification systems, making objective consensus impossible. There is an erosion of fact and the weaponization of context to mislead rather than inform. They promote institutional and leadership distrust and enable cognitive overload. The sheer volume of polluted information forces individuals into defensive tribalism, echo chambers, and cynical skepticism. The question is, what happens when we can no longer agree on what is true? Let's spend a few seconds looking at virtual humans. Virtual humans are fully interactive digital characters combining visual appearance, speech synthesis, and conversational logic. These are fully interactive AI driven digital characters designed to look, speak, and behave like real people. Unlike static 3D models or simple chatbots, they combine visual rendering, natural language processing, and voice synthesis to simulate real time human interaction. Virtual humans function by linking three distinct AI systems together: the visuals, let's say the body, computer graphics, neural rendering, and computer vision creates realistic facial expressions, body language, and micro movements. The voice, we talk about the speech. Text to speech and voice cloning models convert written text into spoken words with realistic emotional inflections, pauses, and pitch. The brain, logic. Large language models allow the character to understand user input, maintain context, and generate intelligent responses in real time. Companies use virtual humans as digital concierges, brand ambassadors, and automated support agents to provide 24/7 personalized service. There are virtual influencers and entertainers. These are entirely synthetic personalities created for marketing, social media storytelling, and musical performances. There are AI news anchors in the broadcast media industry. Media outlets deploy virtual anchors to read breaking news updates instantly in multiple languages without needing a studio crew. Many well known companies have been using virtual humans and their use is growing. A quick check on YouTube and other social media platforms will show an increase in AI generated videos featuring characters that appear human like. For example, Soul Machines developed Florence, a digital health worker for the World Health Organization, whom individuals can talk to about quitting smoking, healthy lifestyles, and even things like questions related to the COVID-19 vaccines. Unique Intelligent and Deloitte Digital developed Sophie, a digital assistant that handles complex customer service inquiries with empathetic facial expressions. Unique also creates conversational digital twins for retail banking and healthcare. Let's look at one of the world's most popular virtual human social influencers in the information space right now. Ludo Magalu is the world's most followed virtual influencer with over 7 million followers and 67.8 million likes at the time of this screenshot. She serves as the digital spokesperson and virtual assistant for Magazine Luiza, a major Brazilian retail company. So there you see Ludo Magalu. So you can go on Instagram or TikTok and give her a follow. We have now reached the end of part one of five, the edited version of the live session for the Architect of Trust, session one, held on July 20th, 2026. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this session. We encourage you to share with your colleagues across social media platforms and help us raise awareness. Like this video and comment so that others may find it. In part one, we looked at distinguishing between misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and AI generated content, and how these are fracturing the information environment and making it more challenging for leaders to lead effectively. Look forward to part two, where we will use real time examples from the Caribbean and internationally to strengthen our awareness and understanding and to identify the four forms of information disorder discussed in part one in real case studies.